Werewolf, subclassing, PvP? Where do you start? What actually works? Well, in this one, I'm going to share with you a werewolf build that uses subclassing to make it better than usual, and it works in PvP in Cyrodiil and in Battlegrounds. Hey, it's Dan, and welcome to Unified Gaming. So, for this video, we're going to be talking about the werewolf, everything you need to know for a werewolf in PvP. This thing will work in Cyrodiil and in Battlegrounds, and it really focuses on the werewolf form and giving us as much power whilst we're a werewolf. If it's me and you're going to play as a werewolf, you want to be in this form as long as you can. It's the fun part of the game, so that's what we're doing here. If you're after the human version of the build, I'm going to kind of skip over that quite heavily, but I will give suggestions, so don't panic. But just note this is primarily werewolf aimed. As with these videos, if you like them and you want to just let me know what you think about the build, comment, likes, really appreciated. And if you haven't done so, do subscribe. I've got more builds and guides on the way that I would hate for you to miss. I also want to say a massive thanks to the YouTube and Patreon members who do support the content. They get early access to videos, exclusive builds and guides, and there's much more. There's details down below. But as with the werewolf, we need to go through what are the limitations of it and what are the strengths. And it's also worth stressing that this thing is best served on either an Arcanist, a Sorcerer, or a Templar. These are the three best classes to use, and it doesn't matter which base class you are. With that said, we're going to jump into the build itself so you can see everything you need to know, and I'm going to go through kind of the pros, the cons, and just a quick summary of being a werewolf. So, for the werewolf, you have a set of skills that will kind of draw upon both resource balls. So if we look at our werewolf here, you've got skills that use stamina and a lot of magicka. The heal is tied to your magicka and your max health. All of your damage skills are tied to stamina, including your stun. What this means is that you need a lot of both resources. And so for that reason, a dark elf is the best race for this. It gives you magicka and it gives you stamina. This is fantastic. You also get weapon and spell damage. And one of the pros for being a werewolf is that whilst you're a werewolf in werewolf form, due to the savage strength, you get 18% more weapon and spell damage. What this means is that this passive from the dark elf is increased by 18%. This is fantastic. So for that reason, I would really suggest being a dark elf. The other reasons to be a werewolf is that you do get increased movement speed, your heavy attacks give you more sustain, you also get the weapon and spell damage as I said, but also our armor buff whilst we're in werewolf form, which is great. And you then can also get Call of the Pack to have some group synergy if you play with other players or with the other morph of the werewolf to get direwolves, which lets you stay a werewolf like really long. So it's a really fun way to play it. The class skills themselves give you access to a gap close with a bleed and an execute, a burst steal that scales with health with regens. It also gives you a damage buff whilst it's slotted, deafening roar, which is a just stun. It also gets major breach, so they take more damage, and on top of that you get major protection, so you take less damage, which is great. Howl of Agony is your burst skill. It also does more damage to people who are off balance and terrified, so this is really good. And Claws of Life is a damage over time that also heals you. For the ultimate, you have two choices. You have Berserker or Pack Leader. Berserker is designed to be hitting really hard with this bonus damage of just tearing through people with that bleed. The Pack Leader is focused on keeping you in werewolf form longer and taking less damage, so you stay alive longer. I find Berserker is the better morph for just focusing more on a damage dealer for one like V1. If you're like duo or just with a group or other werewolves, Pack Leaders are also great. So there are a few choices there. But that's kind of how the skills work. So that's kind of the pros of the werewolf. The cons, as you'll see very soon, is that all of the weapon skills, so like these passives generally turn off. Because most of these need you to have the weapon equipped, and as you'll see when we go into werewolf form, the weapon turns off. We don't have the weapon anymore, which does kind of give us a bit of a problem here. So I'm going to go through kind of the drawbacks much more, but that's kind of why it's a bit of an awkward class to build around. For the attributes themselves, I'm trying to stack my magicka and my health. Your healing is scaled with your health as we saw a minute ago, so you need at least 28,000 in human form, which means in werewolf you have over 30k. If you're new to werewolf, put all of it in health, it's going to really help you out. If you're more experienced, go with a bit of mix, so 32 or 1648, but really get that health up over 30k. Mundus wise, you want the lover Mundus because there's no way to get extra penetration. As you saw with the skills, lots of these weapon things turn off. So if we had, say, two-handed and heavy weapons, because our weapon turns off, we don't get this passive, which means we can't benefit from this. And that's one of the big issues with being a werewolf, that a lot of these passives that you use on weapon skills just simply do not work, along with access to all of these active skills, and you only have access to the werewolf only. So again, it's really, really limiting. So for that reason, we do need the Love Among Us. It's really, really helpful. In PvP, you can never have enough penetration. For the consumables on this, it's a unified gaming build. We use tri-potions. It's like, it's a staple here. This is even more true on a werewolf. You need the healing, so you need the magicka. You need the health to stay alive. You need the stamina to be able to roll and move and damage. So this covers every base you need. You can use the normal ones, or you can buy them. So there's two options here. And then food-wise, I would recommend Jewels of Misrule. You need health and you need sustain. This is fantastic, so I would really, really suggest getting this if you can. It will really help you out. I'm now going to go through like these actual skill lines and what we're using, and then kind of talk about the passives and how that system works, because there's a few nuances there. And as always, if you like my stuff, then, you know, comments really help, and you can support the channel if you're interested. Details down below. For the skill lines, you have a choice of these three. I personally feel, having gone through all of the skill lines with lots of different like subclass and choices, you are best being either an Arcanist, a Sorcerer, or a Templar. And if you're an Arcanist, a Sorcerer, or a Templar, you can make the exact same build here. We're focusing mainly on werewolf form. When you're in werewolf form, the only passives that apply are things that are like flat or always active. So for example, this Healing Tides. Your mastery of Weave and Fate and Abyssal Water increases healing done by 4% for each active crux. As a werewolf, you can't generate crux, which means you can't benefit from this passive. And lots of passives have this problem, where you can't use them in werewolf form. This is the same for Hideous Clarity too. You can't use this because you don't have crux. Same for the Intricate Rune Forms. You don't have a Rune Form's ability slotted whilst you're using werewolf form. So lots of the passives as you'll go through very quickly don't apply to werewolf. And I know lots of people are going to go, but Dan, Animal Companions in the Warden, it has 20% stam mag recovery. It's with an ability slotted, which means in werewolf we can't use it. And that's true for most of the passives in the game. This is when Animal Companions are slotted. This is when you use an Animal Companion. This is when you use an Animal Companion. So none of these will work in werewolf form. And you can go through all of these. I have taken the time to do that, and the best three skill lines I have found is Curative Rune Forms, Aedric Spear, and Storm Calling. Curative Rune Forms is the best one for sustain because this is always active. It's an 18% recovery boost whilst you're just an Arcanist. You don't need to have a crux, you don't need to have skills, it's just always on. This means this works on werewolf. I do appreciate some people don't have the Arcanist and go, what do I do there? If you are a Nightblade or you have access to the Nightblade class, some of the passives down here are really nice in the Shadow. I think it's the Refreshing Shadows. This is a 15% recovery boost that is always on. These other ones don't work because, again, you can't benefit from these whilst in werewolf, but you can get the sustain if you don't have access to the Arcanist, so don't panic there. So treat the Arcanist one, the Curative Rune Forms, as free sustain. The alternative is the Shadow from Nightblade. For Aedric Spear, this is here for the passive damage boost. The Piercing Spear and the Spear Wall do not work because you do need access to these skills on whilst you're in werewolf and you don't have those on. The increase the blocking and stuff, again, doesn't apply if you don't have this skill. The Burning Light, however, does apply in werewolf, and so does the Balanced Warrior, which means as we're in werewolf and we're doing damage with werewolf skills and our dots and so on, this is going to apply for free, which is great. And a Balanced Warrior is also going to be just always on. Again, fantastic, free damage, this is awesome. And to showcase that, I'm going to go into werewolf quickly, and then kind of just show you that I'm going to do some damage to this, put on some dots and all sorts of stuff. Now you'll notice that you can't see the like debuff at the top for Burning Light, but I've got combat metrics on, and you'll see very quickly that the Burning Light does apply. So there it is there. And so this is just free damage. So the reason we use the Aedric Spear skill line is free damage. That is literally it. The final skill line to get the most bang for your buck is the Storm Calling skill line. You get access to Capacitor, which is free stamina, health, and mag recovery. This is always on. You get energized, which is more physical and shock damage. A lot of your skills are physical, so your Howl of Agony is a physical damage, so this gets boosted by this. Feral Pounce is unfortunately bleed, and the Claws of Life is also bleed. If you use the pack leader, then it's physical. If you use Berserker, it's bleed, but this does boost your burst skill, so it's still free damage. The amplitude applies to all of your damage. If they're at 100% health, you do 10% damage. If they're at 0% health, you do 0% damage. So this is just a free damage boost against tanky players. The Expert Mage does not apply. But what this means is that these passives are really useful. 3 work, 1 doesn't. You get 2 work here and you get 1 work here. This is the best way to maximize your damage and your sustain whilst a werewolf. You could use other options such as the Warden ones, which like Winter's Embrace. I think Glacial Presence, which is quite nice if you use glyphs and stuff, or the Icy Aura. But again, a lot of these need you to have this skill on, or these slotted. So the only like defense ones I found that was good was the DK, and you had access to the ones that gave you extra armor, so like Iron Skin. This is just more block, and then this is just more resistance. So if you want some more armor, that is one route there, but I found these were the best 3 skill lines. I'm now going to talk through about some of the other passives and just things that you need to note, because, you know, Werewolf is a bit weird in that some passives do work and some don't. And then I'll go through the actual sets and everything you need to know. So whilst you're in Werewolf form, what you'll notice very quickly is that a lot of these things don't work. So like, if I go to 2-hander, the heavy weapons need you to have this weapon equipped. We don't have the weapon equipped because we're a werewolf, thus we can't benefit from this. And that's the problem with a lot of these passives. The only real one that kind of gets around that is the bow. And now I was testing whether this applies, and it doesn't apply consistently, so this doesn't really work. But the hasty retreat does. I did test this on PTS. So this one does work, which means when we are a bow, and this is leveled up, I need to level it still. If we roll dodge, we get free movement speed, which is really, really nice as a werewolf. You need that speed. So I would recommend using a bow for this. All of these other weapon skill lines don't really do much. And so for that reason, I wouldn't like rush out your way to kind of go, let's level up dual wield. I did that and I regretted it, because this is whilst dual wielding, I'm not dual wielding, I don't get this. I'm not dual wielding, I don't get this one. I'm not dual wielding, I don't get this one. So with that in mind, you end up getting to a point where lots of these passives don't work. The only good one is bow. So if you want to kind of have more werewolf power, bow is the best one to go for. And the weapon itself does turn off. So again, that melee bow range thing doesn't matter here. Just focus on the passive. That's what is going to matter. As with the sets and what we're doing, I've gone back and forward over loads of different sets. And in all honesty, you need to focus on getting the Talk of the Last Aided King. This is by far the best thing for werewolf. It gives you so much damage, which means you can see we've got like 7,200 weapon damage. It is a lot of damage we have. Not only that, it gives you 15% damage reduction. This is a lot of damage. It's like 9,000 armor basically. That's what this is worth, almost 10,000 armor. And you get 500 recoveries. So it's basically Wretched Vitality. It's like Rallying Cry. And it's like having Clever Alchemist. It's essentially your 3 damage sets, maybe 3.5, in one item. If you don't have this item, you can do a similar thing with like Wretched Vitality, Rallying Cry, but it's just harder to use, in all honesty. So I would personally try and get this if you have access to it. It's fantastic. It's a bit tedious, but it's very, very, very good. What you'll find is that if you go with any other combination of sets, you don't really get as much bang for your buck. So this is what I'm going to recommend. As for the mythic itself and like how it all works, it means all of your sets turn off. So you'll see in all of my items that these are just turning off. The only things that matter are the traits and the glyphs. So with that in mind, just focus on the traits and the glyphs. You want sharpened on your bow with poison, like double dot poisons. And you want to basically have impen on all your pieces and reinforce on your chest. I've gone with medium on the chest, heavy on the chest, medium on everything else with light on the waist. So I'm doing basically a 5-1-1, heavy chest, light waist, all medium. You could put in some well fitted if you needed some more sustain, but with this patch being so burst, the impen is really nice. And I've gone with 3 infused damage just to maximize that damage again whilst in werewolf. But that's kind of the sets, the build. I'm going to show you the superstar. So for people curious, ignore the sets, just focus on the trait, the weight, and the glyph. I would also stress that if you can afford it, get tri-stat on all your armor pieces. It really helps with the sustain. If you can't afford all of it, just do your head, the chest, and the legs, and then just do a bit of magicka on the others, and that'll be fine. But I would really recommend, if you can, do get that. For the champion points, the champion points are quite straightforward. I've gone with fighting finesse for just more crit healing. You need that crit heals, big burst heals, you need that crit damage. Weapons expert to make our light attacks do more damage. We hit light attack a lot as a werewolf. Deadly aim for more that more single target, the light attacks, our Howl of Agony, and Thaumaturge for more dots because of our bleed from Werewolf Berserker. For the red ones, we have Bastion for more damage against shields. You can turn this off if you want, I just quite like it. Celerity for speed, Pain's Refuge for more mitigation, and Sustained by Suffering for more sustain. As I said, Bastion can change for like Fortified, which is a really good option. And the green ones, just Seed's Blessing, whatever you like. But that's kind of the build. I'm going to just touch upon kind of quick options you could do if you're the human version, because I do appreciate people might want to use it for both. I use this mainly in Battlegrounds. I just go into Werewolf before the BG. So I literally grab this from my guild house. I queue up for match. And then whilst I'm waiting, I would literally just sit here and wait. And then when it's ready, I jump into Werewolf as soon as the match starts. So this way you can just basically reset it and sit in Werewolf form for the entire fight, which is fantastic. It's really, really fun. If you are going to stay in human form, if you're thinking of your front bar, you need a burst skill. So your options are basically jabs. If you're melee, that's quite decent, with like focus charge as a gap close and radial sweep as a burst ult. For your burst heal, you'd use Room Mend. This is your burst heal in all honesty. That's all you can really use. And you've got the teleport if you want to like kite or get around. That's quite decent. The Storm Calling gives you streak, which is fantastic. So I would use this personally instead, because it's a stun, it's a teleport. You've got a damage buff and you've got your armor buff here. You do then obviously have all your weapon skill lines, which I would lean into heavily, and also scribing. Essentially what you would have your bar look like something like this, where you'd have burst, spammable. So it could be uppercut, it could be flurry, it could be twin slashes if you're using just like dual wield. It could be jabs. If you're then going for a burst skill, you don't really have a burst skill, so you're going to have to use scribing in all honesty for that, or use just a heavy attack in the middle. And that's what you'll see is like one of the trade-offs with this build. That your human form is slightly weaker because we're trying to stack the werewolf form. But if you get questions about what to use in the human form, well, I'll put a comment down below kind of what I'd use. I've just been really mindful of the skill points, that you need so many skill points with these passives, so just be careful. I'm going to now leave some gameplay on the screen to kind of show you a bit more of what is happening, and then I'll wrap it up here. So with the gameplay, I'm going to put in just a quick battleground with just some kind of general tips. And in this match, you'll see at the end I had over a 12-to-1 kill to death ratio, which is awesome, with 1 million damage. This other person had like 1.5 million healing, so it was a higher match. And I'll show you kind of some of the stuff we were doing. So I'm going to go right to the beginning, and it starts about here. One of the things you'll notice as a werewolf is that we are focused on using the gap close, and we're using a hell of a lot of heavy attacks. So as I'm pushing into this group, I'm constantly just light attacking and then doing the claw to get that claw and then to get that healing. That passive healing is really, really helpful. I'm then going for this howls to just keep my health alive, and that sustain going. So if that sustain drops, howl, you need that sustain. It really, really helps. And then as you'll see, when my stamina got low there, I kited around to just get some more, just sustain, because I knew I'd die very quick. This person rushes into me. He hits me with quite a few procs. I go for a heavy attack into a howl, which is a really nice combo and a stun. I go for a heal because I knew that I was going to die if I didn't heal. And you have to be really careful. With the werewolf, if you're pushing in too aggressive, you are going to die because you are very vulnerable to poison damage. So just do factor that in. I'm going to kind of just call it here, but if you want to see more of this gameplay and kind of a guide of how to actually pilot the build, I'm going to put a video in the members section right now. So if you want to see that, consider becoming a member. There'll be details below. But I'm going to say a massive thanks to all of the members who do support the content, and anybody that's liked, that's commented, and that has subscribed. It really helps the channel out. But as always, I'll catch you next video or stream. So thanks for watching, guys. Take care. And bye.